Last video, we took our first steps into communicating with CloudKit and getting our locations. But anytime you have like network calls like this, you got to handle all the errors. So let's start laying the foundation for our reusable alert object. So again, in utilities, like I said, this is where you got to be careful that this doesn't get out of control. Command N for a new file, hit next. I'm going to call this AlertItem. And if you took SwiftUI fundamentals, you see we use this plenty of times in SwiftUI fundamentals. It's the same thing. So this may be review for you, but import SwiftUI here and then create a struct called AlertItem, and that actually needs to be identifiable. So if you're identifiable, that means you need to have an ID, and that is going to equal just a new UU, maybe UUID. Just initialize that every time, and you'll see why. Like when we use this, I'll point that out in case you're not familiar. So now we let title, and that is of type text. Same thing, let message, that is of type text. And then let dismiss button, and that is of type alert.button. Okay, so that is the basic structure of the alert item. Now let's start building our alert context and how we're going to use this alert item. So struct alert context. So basically what the alert context is all the content of our alerts. And so there's going to be a lot of stuff in this alert context. So we'll do / mark, quote space, and then we'll do map view errors. I mean, we'll come back and organize this more, but for now, this is all we got. So I'm going to say static let unable to get locations. That's the name of this alert context. And that is going to be a SwiftUI alert. Now we're going to initialize that with a title message dismiss button. Look familiar on our alert item here? So the text will be text here, and then locations error, and then the text here. I'm going to return these to make this reasonable. There we go. Text will say unable to retrieve locations at this time. And then I like to do /n, say please try again. Because that'll put the please try again like on a new line. And then the alert button will be .default. And then the label we'll give that is a text that'll just say, for now, okay. And you can put, whatever kind of text you want. But how I use this alert item and alert context is this is for my super generic basic alerts, right? Hey, server error, where all the user does is hit okay. Profile updated successfully, okay, right? Just that super basic one button error. Now, if you're gonna have alerts in your project that, that people can like type stuff into it, or if it has like 2 buttons and you wanna take an action when they hit okay, or take an action when they hit like delete, that is a whole different type of alert. Might not work with this setup, but those are like highly custom alerts. But the majority of alerts in an app are this super basic, here's the message, and they just hit okay. So this will handle that, and you'll see how. Okay, so now we want to use this on our location map view here. So above on appear, right? We want it on the Z stack. We'll do .alert, right? This is how you do an alert on a screen. Now you've probably done this before. Well, if you haven't done this way before, you've probably done this, right? Where alert is presented, where maybe you have a state variable on your view where you say is presenting alert, and when that is true, you show the alert. When it's false, it dismisses. That is this is presented version. Well, we have an item version up here on the top, right? And you can see item is binding and identifiable. That's why we made our alert item identifiable, gave it the UUID, all that stuff. So that's what we're going to use. So this allows us to just kind of pass in a reusable alert. Because when you use this one, this is presented, and you have to pass in an alert to the content. Well, if you have multiple different alert types, it's kind of tricky. You've probably seen a lot of Stack Overflow articles, how to show multiple alerts from one screen. And you got to put this on different like view elements. It's just a lot. Whereas if you use this item here, it's still only one alert. You're just making the content of that alert dynamic, right? So that way you can show multiple different types of alerts. And the reason we have multiple different types of alerts is because, we're making network calls. We could have, the data's bad, or maybe your network is not connected, right? There's various different type of error messages we can have here. So that's why we want to use this one. So now it's binding identifiable. So now we need to have a state variable to kind of bind that to. So appear. By the way, I've noticed in editing, and you might notice too, a little verbal tick here. I say kind of a lot when I don't mean kind of, I mean like absolutely this is what we're gonna do. I've noticed it in editing, but I can't edit it out. Anyway, again, when you talk on video for so long, like you just notice a lot of dumb stuff. Anyway, state, private, var, alert item that is of type alert item, and it is optional, so we don't have to initialize that with an initial value. So now down here in our alert, now we can do a binding to that, which is the $ alert item. There you go. And then the content here, hit return to get the autofill. So now we're going to call this alert item, and I'll explain this here in a second. But now we create the typical alert, the SwiftUI alert, except we get title, message, dismiss button. So now we have the alert item that was passed in. So how this is going to work is anywhere we want to set an alert, we're going to set our alert item up here equal to that alert context that we created. And then that is going to set the title, message, button that we just typed out. And then this information basically gets passed through this alert item down into here. So title text will be, whatever alert item we create, dot title. Whatever alert item we create, dot message. And then again, whatever alert item we create, dot dismiss button. Right? And then you'll see this is a pretty generic bit of code. So we're essentially going to copy and paste this little bit onto like all of our screens. But again, here's where we're going to set that alert item. So in our CloudKit manager, where it got back, we're not going to use this error actually, because we created our own error. And I'll talk about that for a little bit here. So now we can do alert item equals alert context dot unable to get locations. And so let me cannot assign value of type alert to alert item. So I messed up somewhere. Go back to the alert item. That's what it is. So I need to be creating an alert item, not an alert here. Again, similar names, typing while talking, easy to make mistakes. My apologies. Hit Control-I to line these up. So you need to create an alert item that has the title, message, dismiss label. Again, the alert item is what we created right up here. So my apologies if that was confusing. Just forgot the item there. So if we go back to location map view, so now this should be good. Do a Command B. Yep, now we're good to go. Okay, so again, what we're doing here is when we fail, we're setting this alert item up here, this state variable, to our alert context that, again, we have all kind of mapped out here. And the value of it here, if I go to alert item, and you've probably seen this in some code right before, is you have this alert code, right? Because if I just copy this, well, if it did still say alert, but right, you'd have this alert code all throughout your views. And to me, that is just messy, sloppy. Like, I don't like the way it looks, right? Having all that alert code be here, or if you had it on a button or something like that, it'd all be there. So I like to abstract all that alert code out of here, make this alert item reusable, and then now I just set my alert item to all the abstracted away alerts, outside. I think that looks a lot neater. And a quick note on why I didn't use the error here and kind of like came up with my own message, which admittedly, so my own message is in the alert item that says unable to retrieve locations at this time. Admittedly, might not be the best error thing. We just did that real quick. But here's why I don't use the error, because you may see, elsewhere people will pass in the error here and just show that error in the alert. Well, most of the time, the alerts you get back from the system aren't user-friendly, right? Like they're developer-friendly. They're good for the developer to help you debug, but for the end user, like they may be completely gibberish to them. So I like to try my best, and again, it's hard to do. I'm not gonna act like it's easy, but I like to try my best to create my own error messages to be as helpful as possible to the end user and not just pass on whatever error the system gives me that could just be completely meaningless to them. Because as you know, if you've ever used an app, you've gotten an error like that just means nothing. Now you're frustrated with the app. It's like the worst. So you want to use the opportunity of your user getting an error as a chance to like do your best customer service job, if you will. So that's why I do that. And again, maybe that's subjective. That's just my style. If you don't agree, cool. Okay, so let's test this out. Let's go to our CloudKit manager. Let's mess this up somehow. Okay, so instead of having our record type be location, right, let's say we did mess it up. Let's say we did have a typo, DDDDG, an extra D, and then we would just misspelled location, whatever, right? So this should give us an error, and we should see our error pop up. So let's test this. Yep, there you go. Locations error, unable to retrieve locations at this time. Please try again. So that's the errors working. Hit OK. We'll stop this. Let's change this back before we forget. I've done that plenty of times record type, where I kind of messed it up on purpose and then forgot to change it back, that location. And then just to be safe, run it again, make sure we're getting some locations here. Okay, cool. Yeah, we got our locations down there. So like I said, this video was all about laying the foundation and explaining this alert item, because as we go through screen by screen and we're making more calls to CloudKit, we're going to be adding more errors to our alert context, right? And you're going to see we're going to use this mark to organize them. So rather than like saving all the errors for the end of the video and creating some ridiculously long alert context file, we're going to slowly build it up as we go. And then maybe at the end, we'll come back and like optimize it, maybe write some better error messages or optimize it a bit. But that is the foundation for our alert items. You'll be seeing this throughout the course. Let's keep it moving.